The mysterious message for 1,000 years. The Galactic Empire ruled the stars. No one dared to fight them. Every planet followed their laws. Every race feared their power. The Empire's warships patrolled every corner of the galaxy. Rebellion was impossible. Peace was forced. Fear was everywhere. But one day, something strange happened. Inside the Imperial Command Center on planet Vargos, alarms began to ring. Red lights flashed across the control room. Officers rushed to their stations. The huge screen at the front of the room showed a small blue planet deep in the dead zone of space. Where is this coming from? Admiral Vorak growled, his voice deep and sharp like a blade. An officer checked the readings again. His hands shook. Sir, it's coming from a planet called Earth. Admiral Vorak frowned. He had never heard of Earth. It was a forgotten world, marked as primitive and unimportant in Imperial records. No one had visited it in hundreds of years. The Empire had assumed it was dead or powerless. What is the message? Vorak demanded. The officer played the signal. It was short and strange. A simple, steady pulse of energy, repeated every 10 seconds. No words, no images, but something about it felt wrong. Is it a distress call? Another officer asked. No, Vorak said coldly. It's a warning. The Empire didn't like warnings. Admiral Vorak ordered a scout ship to investigate. The ship, the Razorfang, was fast and armed with heavy weapons. Its captain was confident. He laughed when told about the small planet called Earth. Probably some old satellites sending random signals, he joked. The ship jumped to the system, entering Earth's orbit. Then, nothing. No message. No report. No signal. The Razorfang vanished without a trace. At first, the Empire thought it was a system error. They sent another ship, and another. Each one disappeared as soon as it reached Earth's orbit. Now the Empire was angry. Is this possible? Vorak shouted. No one defies the Empire. He ordered a full fleet to surround the planet. 50 warships armed with planet-killer weapons. He wanted Earth wiped from existence. But before the fleet could leave, the sensors picked up something even stranger. Admiral, an officer said, pale as snow. We're detecting unknown energy signatures coming from Earth's system. Explain, Vorak growled. They're powerful, sir. Too powerful for a primitive world. And they're moving. Vorak stared at the screen. Dots appeared around Earth. At first, they were small, then more, then hundreds. The Empire's scanners struggled to track them. They have a fleet, an officer whispered. Vorak's face turned to stone. That's impossible. There are no fleets in that system. But the signals were real. The Empire sent a message to Earth, demanding surrender. No answer came for minutes. Then, finally, a face appeared on the screen. A human, calm, cold. His eyes sharp like a predator's. This is Commander Elias Cross of Earth Defense Command, the man said. Your presence is not welcome. Leave now, or be destroyed. The Empire's officers burst into laughter. A single man threatening the greatest military force in the galaxy? Prepare to fire, Vorak ordered. But before they could, the Empire's sensors screamed again. New readings appeared. More ships, bigger, stronger, surrounding the Empire's fleet like a trap closing in. One officer spoke in a trembling voice. Admiral, we're being outnumbered. By who? Vorak demanded. Humans, sir. It made no sense. The Empire believed humans were weak, primitive creatures. They shouldn't have weapons. They shouldn't have warships. And yet, here they were, surrounding one of the Empire's strongest fleets. Impossible, Vorak hissed. But it was real. Suddenly, one of the Empire's ships exploded. Then another. No warning. No time to react. Invisible weapons. Silent attacks. Earth's Defense Command ship, Commander Elias Cross, gave a simple order. Begin. Across space, Earth's fleet came alive. Warships moved like shadows. Weapons fired with deadly precision. The Empire's proud warships were reduced to burning debris within seconds. Back on the command bridge, Vorak's hands trembled. What? What are they? He whispered. His officers had no answers. But one thing was clear. The Empire was no longer the strongest force in the galaxy. And Earth was just getting started. The stars above shifted. The darkness around Earth stirred. More. Signals appeared. Even bigger warships. A whole armada. The true power of humanity was now revealing itself. Admiral, a young officer said with fear in his voice. I think this is only their vanguard. Vorak's eyes widened. How many more do they have? No one knew. And in that moment, for the first time in 1,000 years, the Empire felt fear. The first encounter, the space around Earth was no longer silent. Human warships now filled the black skies. The Empire's fleet, once proud and feared, looked small and weak in comparison. Yet Admiral Vorak refused to believe what his eyes showed him. This can't be real, he said through clenched teeth. Inside the Empire's flagship, the Tyrant, officers worked quickly, trying to make sense of what was happening. Their scanners showed hundreds of unknown human warships, each different in shape and size. Some were fast and thin like blades. Others were massive like floating cities, armed with weapons the Empire didn't recognize. How could a backwater planet build this? One officer whispered, but there was no time to think. A transmission came through. The face of the human commander, Elias Cross, appeared once again. His calm, cold stare made Vorak's blood run cold. You were warned, Elias said. Now, you will learn. Without another word, the screen went black. Vorak's second in command, Captain Relos, laughed nervously. He's bluffing. They're probably old ships. Weak. Nothing against our firepower. Vorak nodded. Good. Fire at will. Empire ships charged their plasma cannons. Glowing blue energy formed at the mouths of giant weapons. In perfect formation, the Empire's front line prepared to unleash a storm of fire. Target their lead. Ship, Vorak ordered. The order was given. Dozens of Imperial warships fired at once. Blazing energy beams shot across the empty void toward a sleek, dark human vessel. Everyone on the Tyrant's bridge smiled, but the smile died in seconds. The energy blasts hit the human ship and vanished. What? Captain Relos gasped. Human ship's shields shimmered with a faint silver glow, absorbing the attack like it was nothing. No damage, no scratch. It didn't even move. That's impossible. Another officer shouted. Then came Earth's answer. From the side of the human ship, dozens of energy cannons fired back. The beams were sharp and bright, slicing through the Empire's front line like paper. One by one, Imperial ships exploded into clouds of fire and debris. Return fire! Vorak screamed, but it was too late. The humans didn't wait. More of their ships moved forward, surrounding the Empire's fleet like wolves circling their prey. The speed was shocking. Human warships darted between the Empire's bulky vessels, firing in precise bursts. Their weapons weren't loud. There was no unnecessary show of power. Every shot was clean. Every hit counted. Within minutes, 10 Imperial ships were destroyed. The Empire had never seen such tactics before. On Earth's command ship, Elias Cross watched calmly. Around him, officers worked like a machine, every man and woman knowing their role. Target the Tyrant's engines, Elias ordered. His voice was soft but filled with steel. Firing now, a young officer replied. 3 stealth human ships, invisible to Imperial scanners, appeared behind the tyrant. They fired concentrated beams of pure energy at the ship's rear. Explosions ripped through the engine room inside the tyrant. Alarms wailed. Smoke filled the bridge. Engines down. An officer yelled. Vorak's face twisted in rage. How? Are they inside our sensors? How can we not see them? No one had answers. Just then, another transmission came through. Elias Cross's face returned to the screen. I gave you a chance, Elias said. This is what you chose. Vorak roared in anger. You dare threaten the Empire? But Elias was already gone. Outside, more human ships arrived. Not small. Ones now, giant warships the size of cities. Their hulls shone like polished steel. Strange alien symbols decorated their sides. These were not ships built by weaklings. These were machines of war made by survivors, by those who had faced extinction and refused to die. One Imperial officer's voice trembled as he spoke. Sir, scanners report more than 500 human ships entering the system. The number shocked everyone on the bridge. 500? Vorak whispered. The Empire had sent only 50 warships. The humans had brought an armada. Sir, we need to retreat, Captain Rallo said, fear clear in his eyes. No, Vorak snarled. We fight to the last man. But deep down, even he knew this was no battle, that this was a slaughter. The humans attacked again. This time, coordinated strikes took out the Empire's communications, cutting them off from each other. Isolated, confused, and terrified, the Imperial ships became easy targets. One by one, they were destroyed. Inside the human command center, Elias Cross spoke to his officers. Continue the assault. No survivors. His officers nodded, in space. The battle turned worse for the Empire with every second. And somewhere far away, deep in the Empire's capital world, news of the disaster was already spreading, but no help was coming. For the first time in history, the Galactic Empire had met. A force stronger, faster, and more ruthless, and the name of that force was humanity. Asterisk. The arrival of Earth's fleet space around Earth had turned into a graveyard of burning ships. The Empire's proud war fleet, once unmatched across the stars, now floated in ruins. Wreckage drifted in the darkness, like dead fish in a silent sea. On board the Tyrant, Admiral Vorak stood stiff, his eyes fixed on the shattered battlefield before him. Every screen on the command bridge showed the same nightmare: Imperial ships burning, human warships closing in, and no way out. How? How can this be? Captain Rellos whispered. Before Vorak could answer, the sensors screamed again. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge. Officers panicked, checking controls with trembling hands. Admiral, new contacts. One shouted. Multiple jumps detected. Vorak's heart sank. How many? He asked in a low voice. The officer swallowed hard. Sir, thousands. Silence fell over the bridge. Everyone stared at the main screen as new signals appeared across the galaxy map. Tiny white dots blinking into life, one after another. First a dozen, then 100, then thousands. They were coming. The Empire's last surviving ships watched in horror as the fabric of space shimmered and broke open. One after another, massive human warships exited hyperspace. Their hulls gleamed in the starlight, engines burning blue, their forms casting long shadows over the wreckage of the Empire's fleet. They're everywhere, another officer whispered, his voice shaking. The scale was terrifying. Some of the new arrivals were larger than any ship the Empire had ever built. Massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, carriers carrying hundreds of fighter crafts, battle cruisers armed with unknown technologies. Smaller, faster ships darted between them like hunting wolves, and above them all floated a colossal vessel, shaped like a blade, darker than the night around it. Its size alone made the Tyrant, The Empire's largest ship looked like a child's toy. "What is that?" Relos stammered. Admiral Vorak didn't answer. He already knew. "That," he said grimly, "is their flagship." On Earth's command ship, Elias Cross stood on the bridge, watching as his fleet arrived. One by one, his officers reported in. Task Force Orion in position. Shadow Wing ready. Titan-class dreadnoughts standing by. Elias didn't smile. His face remained calm, his voice steady. "Good," he said. "Lock the Empire's ships in. No one leaves." Around the human fleet, thousands of drones activated. Tiny, black, spherical machines moved into formation, creating a glowing net of energy that surrounded the remaining Empire ships. Escape was impossible. Inside the Tyrant, panic spread. "We're trapped," one officer shouted. "Communications are down. No reinforcements detected." Captain Relos grabbed Vorak's arm. "Admiral, we must retreat. We can't win this." Vorak's jaw clenched. His pride screamed to keep fighting, but logic told him the truth. The Empire had never faced an enemy like this. Humanity's technology, tactics, and numbers were beyond anything the Empire had known. How did they build this fleet without us knowing? Relos whispered. No one answered. Then a new transmission came through. Elias Cross appeared on the screen once more. The same calm stare, the same cold voice. "This is your final warning," Elias said. "Surrender your remaining ships, or be erased." Vorak felt the weight of 1,000 years of empire fall on his shoulders. He glanced at his burning ships, his terrified officers, the endless human fleet surrounding them. He took a breath. "We will never surrender to savages." Elias's face didn't change. "So be it." The transmission ended. Within seconds, Earth's fleet moved. Warships advanced. Like a wall of steel, fighter crafts poured from carriers, flooding space like angry hornets. Human drones targeted key Empire ships. Massive cannons charged and fired, sending bright beams of energy slicing through space that the Empire ships tried to fight, but it was hopeless. Their weapons were too slow, their tactics too old. Human ships danced between them, attacking with perfect precision. One after another, Imperial ships exploded. Inside the Tyrant, an officer reported desperately, "Sir, half our fleet is destroyed. The rest are surrounded." Vorak gritted his teeth. "Hold your ground. Fight to the last." But even as he spoke, another wave of human ships arrived. The fleet just kept coming. On Earth's command ship, Elias Cross gave the final order. Engage the secondary fleet. No mercy. Massive dreadnoughts that hadn't fired a single shot yet now joined the battle. Their cannons launched beams so powerful, they cut through multiple Empire ships with one hit. Carriers unleashed swarms of stealth drones that disabled Imperial weapons. Within minutes, the Empire's second defensive line collapsed. A voice cracked through the Empire's private comm. "Admiral Vorak, this is Captain Linrose of the Iron Spear. We can't hold. They're everywhere." The message ended in static. Another ship lost. Vorak's hands trembled. His pride, his empire, his entire life, all crumbling before him. The human fleet now closed in, and in the cold silence of space, for the first time in his career, Admiral Vorak felt something he had never known. Fear. Pure, unshakable fear. Humans weren't finished. This was just the beginning. Asterisk. The battle begins the battlefield above. Earth was no longer a fight. It was a massacre waiting to happen. The Empire's remaining ships floated in a tight circle, surrounded on all sides by the enormous human fleet. Every escape route was sealed, every path blocked. Human ships moved with terrifying calmness, closing in like 1,000 sharp blades. Inside the Tyrant, Admiral Vorak gripped the edge of the command table. His knuckles turned white. The once proud admiral now stared at the screens in disbelief. His fleet, his legacy, was being destroyed before his very eyes. "Report," he barked. "20 more of our ships destroyed," a shaken officer answered. "Our defenses are breaking. Communications still jammed." Another officer added, "No reinforcements from Imperial Command, sir. Our distress calls aren't getting through." Vorak's face darkened. He knew then, the Empire's power meant nothing out here. In this cold, endless stretch of space, only one law ruled: strength. And humanity now held it. Suddenly, the human fleet moved again. Without warning, hundreds of Earth's warships surged forward. Fast attack ships weaved through debris, dodging wreckage and laser fire. Dreadnoughts charged their main cannons. Carriers unleashed fighter swarms that filled the darkness like a cloud of angry wasps. "They're advancing." Captain Relos shouted dot on Earth's flagship. Commander Elias Cross stood tall. His officers watched him, awaiting the next command. "Begin." Elias said quietly dot in an instant. Space lit up with fire. Human ships opened fire in perfect unison. Beams of concentrated energy struck the Empire's defensive line, ripping through shields, tearing hulls apart. Imperial ships exploded one after another. The glow of burning debris cast eerie light on the battlefield. The tyrant shook violently. As nearby ships were obliterated, shields holding at 50%, an officer called out. Vorak gritted his teeth. "Return fire. All weapons, focus on their lead dreadnought." The Empire's remaining cannons roared to life. Blue plasma bolts shot toward the enormous human ship at the front of the formation. But this time, something strange happened. Before the plasma blasts could hit, the human ship's hull shimmered, and the energy dissolved into nothing. "What? What kind of shields are those?" Captain Relos gasped. No one knew. And worse, the human dreadnought fired back. A single beam of crimson energy blasted out from its main cannon. The shot tore through 3 Imperial cruisers in a line, cutting them in half like paper. Inside the tyrant, alarm screamed. "We've lost the left flank." Another officer cried. "Our right side formation is breaking. The Iron Talon just exploded." Vorak's fury turned to helplessness. His fleet was crumbling. On Earth's command ship, Elias Cross gave a cold nod. "Send in the stealth bombers." From the shadows, dozens of nearly invisible human ships uncloaked. Small but deadly, these bombers slipped between wreckage and enemy fire, planting high-yield energy mines on Imperial vessels. Within seconds, new explosions erupted across the Empire's defensive ring. Ships tore apart from the inside as the mines detonated. The Empire tried to counterattack, but human ships were too fast, too precise. Every Imperial shot missed or was absorbed by strange silver shields. "Admiral, we can't hold them back," an officer shouted. "Then keep firing." Vorak snarled, though his voice shook now. More human fighters swarmed in. Their pilots moved like they were born for this. They danced through explosions and laser fire, picking off Imperial ships one by one. The Empire's final defensive wall collapsed. Captain Relos turned to Vorak. His face was pale, sweat pouring down his brow. "Sir?" "It's over." Vorak opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the human fleet broadcast a message on all frequencies. It wasn't Elias Cross's face this time. It was a symbol, a simple emblem. A white eagle, wings spread, clutching. A spear and a shield on a black background. The symbol of Earth's United Defense Command. Below it, a single sentence appeared. "This galaxy belongs to no one." The message repeated in dozens of alien languages. Every remaining Imperial officer on every ship saw it, and every heart filled with dread. Humanity wasn't here to beg. Asterisk. They weren't here to survive. They were here to win. Admiral Vorak finally understood. He slumped in his command chair, the fire in his eyes gone. "We were never the rulers of this galaxy," he whispered. "We were only holding it for them." Humans advanced once more, this time slower, steady, like hunters closing in for the final kill. The battle wasn't over yet, but its ending was already written. And the Empire's story was about to meet its final page. The turning point, the battlefield, was no longer a battlefield. It was a graveyard. Fires burned in the darkness. Shattered Imperial warships floated lifeless, and drifting bodies spun silently in the void. Only a handful of Empire ships remained, clinging to each other like frightened animals surrounded by wolves. Inside the Tyrant, Admiral Vorak sat in silence. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. Around him, officers worked without hope. The steady beeping of damage alarms was the only sound left on the bridge. "Report," Vorak ordered. Though his voice was weak now, an officer hesitated, then spoke. "Only 12 Imperial ships remain, Admiral. Shields failing, weapons down to 20% capacity. No backup incoming." Captain Rellos added, "Our escape routes are gone. The humans have us completely surrounded." Vorak stared at the main screen. The human fleet hung before them, massive and motionless, but not because they were weak. No, they were waiting for something. "What are they doing?" Rellos asked, his voice trembling. As if in answer, the human fleet's formation shifted. The massive ships moved aside, parting slowly like the opening of a giant steel gate. From the dark space beyond, something enormous appeared, even from a judge. Distance, the Imperial officers could feel its presence. The ship was unlike anything they had seen. Bigger than any dreadnought, longer than 3 Imperial flagships combined. Its surface was smooth, black, and polished like glass. No visible weapons, no visible engines, and yet it moved with power. On the side of the ship, one word was written in glowing white letters. HSS Titan. A name that would be remembered forever. The bridge of the Tyrant fell silent. "What is that thing?" Rellos whispered. Vorak's voice cracked as he spoke. "That is death." On the human command ship, Commander Elias Cross watched the arrival of the Titan with steady eyes. His officers looked nervous, even though it was there. "Ship, orders, sir?" One asked. Elias gave a simple nod. "Proceed." The HSS Titan began to move. Its weapon systems came online. But unlike other ships, it didn't fire hundreds of small cannons or launch swarms of fighters. No, the Titan had only one weapon. Single colossal cannon, mounted beneath its hull. It glowed with a deep red light, like the heart of a dying star. Inside the Tyrant, sensors screamed, "Admiral, their main weapon is charging." Vorak felt cold sweat run down his face. "How powerful is it?" he asked, though part of him already knew. An officer checked the readings. His hands shook. "Sir, it's strong enough to destroy a moon." No one spoke. No one moved. Empire had built weapons capable of destroying cities, even cracking planets over weeks. But this was something else. A shipborne cannon capable of ending worlds. "Target locked," came the human transmission. The Titan's cannon fired. A beam of pure crimson energy tore through space. It didn't move fast like a laser. It was slower, heavier, like a physical object made of light. As it moved, the very fabric of space rippled around it. Struck the center of the Imperial fleet. The explosion was unlike anything seen before. A giant ball of red and white light expanded outwards, swallowing ships whole. Imperial cruisers and battleships evaporated in an instant. The shockwave hit the Tyrant, throwing officers from their seats. Sparks burst from the consoles. Alarms blared. "Shields at 5%. Rellos shouted. The explosion finally faded. leaving behind nothing but dust and twisted metal dot. Where the Empire's fleet had once stood, only empty space remained. Out of the darkness, the human fleet moved forward, unchallenged now. Inside the tyrant, Vorik leaned against the wall. His body felt heavy. He had never seen destruction like this, not even in the Empire's bloodiest wars. He looked at Relos, his voice a bitter whisper. We never stood a chance. Relos didn't argue. No one did. Another message came through. This time, Elias. Cross himself appeared on the screen. It's over, Admiral, Elias said, his tone calm but final. You have one last choice. Vorik straightened, gathering the last of his pride. The Empire never surrenders. Elias didn't blink. Then you'll be remembered as the man who led them to extinction. The message cut on the command deck of the human fleet. Elias Cross gave the final order. Prepare to end it. The human ships began to charge their weapons once again. Admiral Vorik closed his eyes. For the first time in his long career, he had no orders left to give. And in that endless, empty sky, the Empire's fate was sealed. Asterisk, the fall of the Empire, the great Empire, once feared across the stars, now stood on the edge of total defeat. Where a mighty fleet had gathered to crush a forgotten planet, only silence remained. Burned wreckage floated through space. Fires flickered in the distance. And the once proud flagships of the Empire were reduced to scattered metal and drifting bodies. In the heart of this ruin, the tyrant drifted slowly, its engines dead, its lights flickering like a dying flame. Inside the command bridge, Admiral Vorik sat in his chair, no longer shouting orders. His uniform was torn, his face marked by smoke and exhaustion. Around him, what was left of his officers worked in silence, fear in their eyes. Another message arrived. It wasn't a warning this time. It wasn't a threat. It was a countdown. A large red number appeared on every Imperial screen. 300 seconds. It ticked down. 0.299, 298, 297. What is this? Captain Relos asked, his voice weak. Final notice, Vorik muttered, his voice empty. They're giving us a last chance. On the other side of the battlefield, the human fleet hovered still, weapons charged, engines glowing softly. Their warships didn't move, didn't fire, as if offering one final act of mercy. On Earth's flagship, Commander Elias Cross watched. Quietly, his officers awaited the final command, tension hanging thick in the air. Should we finish it now, sir? One asked. Elias didn't answer immediately. He looked at the broken Imperial ships, at the shattered flag of the Galactic Empire. He knew this wasn't just about winning a battle. This was about ending an age of fear, an age where one empire ruled through terror, and humanity would make sure it never returned. Back on the Tyrant, the countdown reached 180. An officer turned to Vorik. Sir, what do we do? Vorik closed his eyes. For years, he had believed the Empire was unstoppable, untouchable. He had led invasions, crushed rebellions, ordered the destruction of entire worlds without a second thought. Now, sitting in the ashes of his greatest defeat, he saw the truth. The Empire had grown arrogant, and humanity had waited, watched, and risen in silence. He opened his eyes. Send a message, Vorik said quietly. Relos stared. Sir, open a channel to the human fleet. A moment later, Elias Cross's face appeared on the screen. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes showed respect. I didn't expect to hear from you, Admiral, Elias said. Vorik straightened in his seat, lifting his chin one final time. This battle is yours. I won't deny it, Vorik said. But what comes next, you'll have to live with. Elias's gaze didn't waver. We've lived in your shadow long enough. Vorik gave a small nod. You fought well, better than any race I've seen. The Empire will remember this. Elias spoke firmly. There will be no Empire after. Today, the message cut. The countdown reached 30 seconds. Inside the Tyrant, officers exchanged looks. Sir? Vorak raised a hand. Deactivate weapons. Power down shields. One by one, the last remaining Imperial ships followed. On Earth's flagship, Elias Cross watched as the enemy vessels went dark. He gave the final command. Cease fire. A deep silence filled the void. The countdown disappeared. Across space, human ships held position. No more shots were fired. No more ships exploded. The battlefield became still, a graveyard holding the weight of 1,000 lost souls. In that moment, the Empire's 1,000-year reign came to an end. Later, across the galaxy, news of the defeat spread like wildfire. Entire planets, once forced under Imperial rule, celebrated. Flags were burned. Statues of Imperial leaders were pulled down. Races that had lived in fear for generations spoke the same word with hope. Humans. They had done what no one else dared. They had faced the might of the Galactic Empire and won. Inside the Tyrant, Admiral Vorak watched the last images of his fleet fade from the screens. He knew he would be remembered as the man who led the Empire to its final defeat. And strangely, he felt no anger. Only quiet, only peace. Outside the ruined ship, Earth's fleet moved forward, not as conquerors, but as survivors claiming their place in the stars. Commander Elias Cross gave his officers a final order. Clean up the wreckage. Help the survivors, and send a message to the galaxy. A young officer asked, "What message, sir?" Elias looked at the stars beyond the shattered empire and spoke softly. "This galaxy belongs to no one, but we'll protect it now." And so in the cold silence of space, a new age began. An age of humanity. And an age where no one would ever rule by fear again. Asterisk. Shadows beyond the stars. The war was over. The Empire's banners no longer flew over conquered worlds. Human ships patrolled the space lanes, rebuilding peace in the ruins of the galaxy's oldest power. New governments rose. Broken planets healed. And for the first time in centuries, the stars felt quiet. But far beyond the old Imperial borders, beyond the edge of any known map, something moved. In the deep void, a region of space, long marked forbidden even by the Empire, ancient ships drifted. In the blackness, their hulls were vast, older than the Empire itself, covered in strange markings no one alive could read. Inside one of those ships, a light blinked on. A shadow moved across a control panel. Thin, long fingers touched a button, and a screen came to life. Across it, images of the recent battle flickered. The destruction of the Empire's fleet, the rise of humanity, the sight of HSS Titan unleashing its terrible weapon. A deep, alien voice spoke from the darkness. "They have awakened." Another voice replied, ancient and cold. "Too soon." The first voice gave a low, crackling laugh. "It no longer matters. The humans have shown themselves. The others will notice." On Earth's side of space, unaware of the Watchers, humanity celebrated their victory. On Earth itself, cities were lit with light displays. People filled the streets, cheering, holding banners of peace and unity. Soldiers returned home. Commanders received medals. The names of the fallen were spoken with pride. Commander Elias Cross stood alone on a balcony overlooking Earth's capital city. The war was won, but something heavy sat on his shoulders. He looked at the stars above, where millions of lives had been lost, and felt the weight of what came next. A young officer approached. "Sir, message from deep space." Elias turned, a frown forming. "From who?" The officer hesitated. "We don't know, sir. A signal isn't from any known system. No name, No language we recognize. But it's old. How old? Thousands of years, sir. Maybe more. Elias stared at the datapad handed to him. The message was a string of ancient symbols, but one symbol was clear. A circle with 3 vertical lines inside it. He'd seen it before Dot in the ruins of an ancient human colony. The same mark carved into stone older than Earth's oldest cities. His chest tightened. Send it to the council. Elias ordered quietly. No one else sees this. Yes, sir. The officer left, and Elias turned back to the sky. Out there, something else was watching. He could feel it in his bones, Dot, for all their strength, for all their victories. Humanity had not gone unnoticed, and the galaxy was bigger than they imagined. On the edge of human-controlled space, patrol ships had begun to vanish. Outposts went silent without warning. Merchant vessels found strange, blackened ships floating empty in deep space. No signs of life, but faint power still flickering inside. Rumors spread. Some spoke of old gods, others of a forgotten race. One even the Empire had feared. The galaxy whispered a new name. The architects. No one knew what they were. No one knew what they wanted. But one thing was certain. They were waking up, and they had noticed humanity. Back on Earth, Elias Cross stood alone under the stars, speaking softly to himself. We fought the Empire, he said. We survived. Monsters. He closed his eyes. But the real war hasn't even begun. Above him, unnoticed by anyone, a faint tear appeared in the night sky. Something stepped through, and it smiled. Asterisk.